that would be all. So, now we can move to the official part of the program. So, it would be like a great pleasure to introduce our next speaker. So, our first symposium speaker today is Siniša Varga, and he has many years of relevant work experience as provider of health services and senior manager in tertiary care hospital, policy maker as Minister of Health and Deputy Minister of Health and International Consultant for Healthcare Reforms in close communication with international organizations, government institutions and non-governmental organizations and many more. During his presentation, he will discuss availability of biological therapy and biosimilars, different biosimilar methodologies, listing and reimbursement policies, and cost versus value from patient and health system perspective. Siniša Varga, you have the floor. Big applause, please.
Okay, good morning everybody. I'm just set my timer. I like to be on time so I don't go over. So I thank you for the wonderful introduction. I won't repeat what I said. So it's very difficult for me to, this is a talk if I could talk about Fidel for 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours. However, I have to concentrate it all into a 20-minute slot. So because of the fast speed that we'll be moving at, you might feel some dizziness, you might have some nausea, and if you feel like anything wrong because of the high speed of this lecture, look for the boys and girls in blue shirts, they'll take you back to some using things. Okay? So I like to call them the 4 Ps, and actually, me personally, I have been in the position of the 4 Ps, and what we'll be talking about today is this payer side mostly, but also we have the policymaker, which is the Minister of Health. We have the patient, of course, which has to be at the center of our health systems. And we have the provider, the doctors, the nurses, the pharmacists, everybody that's interacting with patients on a daily basis. So this is something that is, all these things influence access to care, costing of medicines, and a lot of other things. So, when we're talking about the payer, we're looking at a constant request for additional funds. And as you all know, funds are limited. We don't have oil and gas in the basements of our hospitals or health insurance funds. The amount of money that we have on a daily basis or a yearly basis is quite limited. So when we talk about what the payer is constantly being requested is all these new nibs and nabs and nubs and nibs and nids. And of course, once finally we get this consolidated and have it somehow all included in the health system, then the pharmaceutical industry says, now we have combinations, okay? So we'll add more of them together and we'll give you a few percent discount and then you'll be able to afford it. This is something that I'll just give you an example. The new director of Euro WHO told me that just a few months ago, a Norwegian delegation came to Copenhagen and asked for assistance in how to finance especially expensive medicines, and because Norway can no longer afford this. Norway is one of the highest spenders in healthcare. Norway has over 6,500 euros per capita per year to expend on health, while for instance Croatia has 700 euros. So just to give you an example. And Norway says that they can no longer afford. So things have to start to change. Things have to become so there's some good things that are also happening in this field. One of the good things that is happening in this field is a lot of medicines that have been blockbusters in the past are very soon losing their patent status. So what is called now the cliff, the best-selling biologics patent cliff, which has been starting to happen since around 2012, and it's culminating now in 2019, where we have in 2019 3 patents losing their patent status and going into areas where biosimilars have a big chance to bite into this market. Just the last 3, Alison had subpoenaed Lucentis, just the 3 of them were over $15 billion market. Where should I keep pointing this towards you?
No, wherever you want.
Anywhere?
Yeah.
Okay. So, this used to be what a pharmaceutical company or a big producer used to look like. This is what a pharmaceutical company's factory setting used to look like. What is happening now is genomics, everything related to the generation of new patents in especially biological therapies are happening in small little garage-based or kitchen-based pharmaceutical companies. And this is actually a setting of an actual pharmaceutical company in somebody's garage. You can see here, this is actually a garage door with a garage door opener. So what this means is not only big players as individuals, as big players as countries versus small countries. Everybody has an equal chance to now, with computer sciences, data management, and genomics, is able to now introduce new methodology for generating new patents and new medicines. This is a book I would suggest that you read. It's from 2012. It's called Body Count, and it talks about solving biotech's biggest problems in kitchen environments. Okay, and just to cite this, also Bill Gates has been recently said that if you have to start all over again, which area of innovation would you be looking into? He says that as it was in the 60s, in the 70s, and the 80s, bringing around PCs and putting a PC on everybody's desk. Today, he says that he would look into biological molecules. So this is something that is recognized by world-class innovators as an area that everybody should be getting into. So what can we afford? So as you know, medicines are becoming more and more sophisticated, becoming more and more expensive, and who says what can we afford while we can't afford? So we have 2 institutes that are well known in Europe. NICE is an older one, it's in the UK, and it has panels of people that look through the scientific data and clinical evidence and proving cost effectiveness or reviewing the proof of cost effectiveness of medicines. IQWiC is a fairly newer one, and it's based in Germany. And they have websites that have very much knowledge that you can tap into as far as evidence of effectiveness of medicine. And why is this necessary? Look at the prices of these medicines, how much they cost per year or per month for treatment. So, and most of these are orphan drugs or cancer drugs. That means that these medicines are needed for the most sensitive patients in the health system. Okay, so when you look at how much, as I mentioned before, Norway is among the richest countries as far as healthcare spending is concerned. I come from this area, Croatia, Macedonia, Bosnia, Macedonia. Albania, where you see very little spending on healthcare, and when you look at this straight line, please, there we go. When you look at this straight line, Slovenia is double of Croatia, Austria is double of Slovenia, and as you move through Europe, this is how you get northwest of Europe. This is how you get to Norway. Today it's about 6,500 euros per capita. So these very high expenditures on health. However, at the same time, the price of a hip replacement, the price of a cardiac or the price of medicine is pretty much the same. Okay, so it's a question of how can you assure access to medicine and access to services of health providers at the same level of quality as Norway with really, really limited resources. So when people ask, so how much does the health system cost? What is the average value? Evidence-based medicine costs per capita approximately $1,100, about 1,000 euros, plus the salaries of healthcare workers in the country. So when Croatia spends 700 euros, it's obviously underspending and has a gap where medicines are missing for the people. So when we look at the pharmaceutical budget, in Croatia the pharmaceutical budget is approximately 1/4 of the national health budget in total. So if we look at what is happening in this area, we have the big angle which is called discussing what is the asking price of a medicine and what is the payer's willingness to pay. This is a big area where most of the savings come from in this negotiation process. On top of that, we have areas of wholesale margins and pharmacy margins. This is areas for savings as bulk buying reduces the margins as opposed to buying individual medicines raises the cost. Of course, we also have rebates and payback mechanisms that also influence how we can lower the prices of medicines. And this is what makes the pharmaceutical budget. If it's not enough, then we introduce patient co-payment for certain medicines. Okay? I just have to say that this afternoon I have a seminar that will be dealing in more detail into some of these things. Now, on top of all of that, we have what influences how you spread out the little money that you have, how you introduce this treatment options to the patients, through clinical indications, treatment outcomes, and performance. So these are the last areas that we can fund for savings. One thing that has to be always balanced in every country, and it's not always easy, is the balance between patented medicines and off-patent medicines. So generic medicines, biosimilars, the prices of these drugs have to be much, much lower than original drugs. And again, everything comes into play. Asking price versus willingness to pay, margins and pharmacies and wholesalers, rebates and buybacks, and patient co-payment levels. These are all influence how we use it. Okay? So, how do you prioritize? You have to ration out the money. How do you prioritize? It is very difficult to say to a sick person, your disease is not a priority compared to somebody else's disease. Because when a person is sick, of course his disease is the most important thing in the world. So policymakers on a high level have to be able to differentiate what is life-saving medicine versus medicine that we need this country. Okay? So if you're able to do this, then you can set up the categories of co-payments that is low or none, to moderate, to very high, or service of medicine is not covered in the basic healthcare package at all. Okay? So, as I said, IQWiC in Germany or NICE in the UK, they make analysis for cost effectiveness and evidence-based medicine and push towards the green or the red for certain medicines or medical procedures or implantables or things. So then you set the high priority and the low priority. And finally, you set what is the budget cutoff threshold. The budget cutoff threshold is what we can afford. This is something that is politically very difficult to do in very many countries. This is a soft area. And what happens is countries start to generate arrears in healthcare systems. So in Croatia, very many times we'll be hearing about how much hospitals owe wholesalers. Okay? So who's discussing this? The discussion is between government and industry. Each one has its own areas where they're better or worse, and usually you have this discussion where the industry is a lot more motivated than government officials, but this is another part. Okay? On European level, the European Commission is saying that voluntary cooperation between countries is an area where especially small countries can pool their resources for having higher levels of negotiation power with pharmaceutical companies. This is just a quick list of drugs that were introduced in Croatia in 2018. And also we have a whole list of drugs that have changed their indications. So it's not only black and white, is a drug on a positive drug list, yes or no, but also for which indications. So a lot of times drugs have very restricted areas of application, and through the negotiation process, this can be again expanded. MEAs are managed entry agreements. Is what is the mechanism of how medicines are reimbursed by the healthcare? So the Krankenkasse in Germany, or the Croatian Health Insurance Fund, or the funds in Belgium or Netherlands. They have managed entry agreements. The battery is dead in this. That's what the problem is. Okay, so we've had this operation now since 2009. I'll just go back real quick. So in Croatia since 2009, since 2009 we've had financially based agreements, and now we've been moving towards health outcomes-based agreements, payment by results through patient registries, and coverage of evidence of deployment. So it's not just pay or with or without a discount, it's also a question of paying with paying based on performance. Okay? So in 2014 we introduced the first one. I was the director of the health insurance fund at the time. So it was for hepatitis C treatment. Only cure patients have been paid a contracted amount, and a special software was developed for patient registry and treatment monitoring. And this was a model to be introduced and expanded to all other areas. As you know, we've all been moving, and other speakers will be talking about personalized medicine. So what we're trying to do is differentiate, especially this area, where drugs are not toxic and beneficial, and it's a question from the reimbursement side. If we have this potpourri or mishmash paprikash, or whatever we want to call it here in the middle, where everybody's mixed together, same diagnosis, same prescription, how do you pay for this? How do you pay for patients that are not being cured or being toxicized by medicine? It's not fair neither to the patients nor for the payer. Okay, so we're looking for the payer-pharma partnership. New drives and opportunities for partnership. So, as I said, the payer side, looking at how you finance the physician, the hospital, health management, predisposition testing, prevention of disease, diagnosis and treatment, with a self-managed patient with devices and wearables and sensors used at home is a new modern way of treating patients. What we're looking at now is how we can introduce medical genetic testing and predictive genetic testing in the areas of predisposition testing and diagnosis and treatment, and introducing pharmaceutical companies also in the process of treating patients, where we make sure that the patients are properly selected for adherent, for being susceptible or being proper candidates for treatment. And a lot of them, the risk of the patient is then put on to the pharmaceutical company. Okay? So as I said, we have new technologies being introduced and changing the whole game of how pharmaceutical companies are paid for their services. And it's not only products, now it's also products and services. Okay? So we're looking at the further steps of how this is to be developed. And one thing just to mention at the end, you have to actively introduce and attract clinical trials in the country. It brings about earlier access to medicines, newly patented medicines in the country, still in the third phase of clinical trials. This also brings about a higher income for healthcare workers, pharmacists, doctors, nurses, everyone involved in this process, especially clinical pharmacology and clinical pharmacy and clinical pharmacology. And these are areas that have been underutilized in very many countries in Europe, and this is something that has to be explored as much as that. And the final word, as young people will be going into the workforce, and you have to set who you're going to be working for, who's going to be your client. And I said, no matter what the setting is, whichever company you work for, whichever pharmacy you work for, if you work in the pharmaceutical industry, a pharmacy, a hospital, or a local health center, no matter where you work, you always have to remember that you're working for, I always say, I work for the youth, and I always hear that all my political things that I do and changes in health system, I hear that the youth have a better chance in life than what we had prior to that. Okay, thank you very much.
All questions we will address in panel discussion. So I believe just slowly move to our second speaker. So our next speaker is Maya Shelton from Medicines from Europe. She's a physicist by training with a degree from the University of Ljubljana, and she is also an academic. Currently Maya works for the biosimilar medicine sector group as biosimilar manager in regulatory science and quality. Maya will present experience in biosimilar medicines across the European Union and will underline that biosimilar medicines can expand access to biological treatments. Maya, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. So first of all, thanks a lot for the invitation to speak here. I'm really happy to be back to EPSA. As Marco mentioned, I am also, not so long ago, I was part of this association, and I'm really happy to be talking about a topic that I'm really passionate about. Thank you to the first speaker, very good introduction to the question of access to medicine. So is it okay if I stand here as well? Can you see me? Perfect. So as Marco mentioned, I work for Medicines for Europe, and that is an organization that represents pharmaceutical industry, so generic, biosimilar, and value-added medicines. But I work as a biosimilar manager, so my role is to really work on biosimilars, biosimilar policy and regulatory science. So first of all, I would like to ask you a question. I want to make this presentation interesting for you. So I would ask everyone who in their studies learned about biologicals to stand up. Okay, great. We can go back to this now. So that's really good. I remember how when we were in EPSA, we were making a survey who has learned about biologicals and biotechnology, and it still wasn't included in the curricula in all of the countries. So I think this is a really good development. Okay, so the second question would be, who heard in their curricula about biosimilars as well? Stand up. Okay, thanks a lot. So it's a bit less of a number, but we have also EPSA, and we are here today to close this gap. I'm not sure if it was value. Okay, so what I really want to touch upon today is we talk about biosimilars and what is their value. What is Europe in biosimilar medicines experience? A little bit about the framework and the access to biologic treatment in Europe. There's a lot of things I would like to talk about today, but I'm very limited in time. Michael, please also let me know if I go overboard so I can shorten up. Let me know if something is not interesting for you or if you want us to touch upon it more. We can touch upon later in the workshop in the afternoon. So first, let's see some figures, if that works. Okay, so let's look at Denmark. This is news from the Danish authorities' website on their switch from adalimumab, which is one of those medicines that went off patent in late 2018, early 2019. And what they're saying is they managed to switch 90% of patients to biosimilar version of adalimumab in only 3 weeks. And that made them save in the year 2019 350 million Danish crowns. So I googled yesterday, here I am from Denmark. So how much is this in euros? Okay, so I googled yesterday, it's roughly around 37 million euros. So this is 37 million euros that Denmark was able to use for something else in their healthcare budget, only on one molecule. In the UK, use the impact of biosimilars in 2018, treating a third more people at half the cost. And here are some molecules on which NHS said, put out a statement and they said money on. So you can also see adalimumab and a lot of others that are biologic treatment and have their biosimilar version that gave room to invest in other treatment and also to bring earlier access to patients and broader access to more patients. However, we are not there yet. In many countries, access to biological treatment is very restricted. There was a recent study done in Italy that even 10% of rheumatoid patients, which translates in 30,000 patients who are actually within the treatment guideline and should be eligible to receive biologic treatment are not receiving them. Not to mention that treatment guidelines, but there could also be patients who could get access to medicines if it would not be restricted because of cost reason. So again, there is still a lot to be done. Okay, so, but then again, let's look at how biosimilars is regulated in Europe and where Europe stands. Overall, with biological treatment, we have over 35 years of experience in Europe. First biologic medicine was insulin, I believe, probably touched upon that yesterday as well. And the first biosimilar medicine that was authorized was in 2006. And this was way before any other jurisdictions in the world. We also have first monoclonal antibiotic authorized in 2013, which is infliximab. It's one of those MABs that speaker before me mentioned as one of critical treatments. And in 2017, there were first biosimilars also in oncology treatment. And we look at the world map and the volumes of biosimilars globally, we can see in the light blue Europe we have really the vast majority of experience with biosimilars. And there are also others that are following on, US, Japan, and so forth. Okay, so how does it work for Europe? I think this is very important to understand the whole concept of biosimilars and biosimilarity. So we have European Medical Agency in Europe that evaluates every market authorization for biosimilars and then assesses if these medicines are safe and efficacious. And then the European Commission, on the advice of EMA, grants the EU-wide market authorization. However, in Europe, we always make things a bit more complicated. So then we have member states who decide on policies of reimbursement and price, and also prescribing and substitution. So when we talk about if we're going to switch patients from biologic reference products to biosimilars, that is actually a decision from a member state, from national governments and authorities. And the EMA gives only scientific evaluation. Okay, so this is just an overview of biosimilars in Europe. From EMA, we have seen so far 92 market authorizations, and we have submitted and 54 market authorizations granted. So we have 54 biosimilars on the market. There are 7 withdrawn, but that is only for solely for marketing, for business reasons, none for safety and efficacy. So what I want to say is that we have a lot of experience already, a lot of products on the market, and a lot of good experience. And here I would like to also present a quote from Sweden. We have one from Sweden here. Okay, fortunately not. So Sweden is also one of the countries that took the opportunity of biosimilars, and we recently had a roundtable discussion with Gustav, who is actually a player from Sweden, from Stockholm Council, and what he said it was really an important part of the success story of biosimilars in Sweden is the trust in the European Medicines Agency and the confidence of all of the stakeholders in the robust registration procedure and trust that biosimilar medicines are as effective and safe as the reference product. And then we always come to this important question, to switch or not to switch. And I would like to shed some light on that and present some of the views. So far we have a large body of evidence. As I said, there are many products on the market already. We have over 700 million patient days in Europe, and that's an old number from, I think, 2016, so now it's probably over 1 billion patient days, where pharmacovigilance system in Europe detected no issues in safe and efficacy immunogenicity. We also have a lot of controlled experience. So some of the early adopters, as Denmark, Norway, they did a really good job because they also track everything, they have registries, and they did study on it. So we have wonderful studies as DenBio, as Northwich, that show that there's no inferiority treatment biosimilars compared to reference products. And on top of that, we also have literature review studies that look into all of the switching studies that were produced over those years. And this literature review specifically looked over 90 studies, over 7 molecules, 14 indications, more than 40,000 individuals included in all of those studies, and it shows that using biosimilars showed unchanged risk of immunogenicity-related safety concerns or diminished efficacy after switching. So I think this gives us a pretty good confidence that it works. Okay, so I basically already mentioned all of those. And what we've seen has been very important and instrumental in the biosimilar experience was support for switching from the healthcare authorities, national guidance, regulatory guidance, and clinical guidance from medical societies. So we have a lot of national regulatory authorities who have stated that switching is safe. We have a lot of medical society as oncology, as ECO, a lot of also associations that EPSA is partnering with in that field. Rheumatoid medical society, ULA. So a lot of them also positioning themselves on switching and helping to explain the science. I think what is really important for you as future healthcare professionals is to have the ability of trusted resources. So what I wanted to point out to you that European Commission and European Medicines Agencies have produced some wonderful materials on the topic. So if you want to know more about the science of biosimilars, but also there is information available on more patient-friendly language. It exists in all of the European official languages. So we have information about for healthcare professionals as well as information for patients. And these are very, I would say, basic and core documents that every healthcare professional should know about biosimilars. But of course, there's also more, and you can access some of those on our website. So we have a resource of different publications that were published on the topic, which is called the Reading List on Biosimilar Medicines. So if anyone is really interested in investigating the topic, I would welcome you to go to our website and look into it. Okay, so as a last segment of my presentation, I want to touch upon access to biologic treatment in Europe. And point out that access really, thank you, really varies, depends on the country and the therapeutic area. So if you look into it, it's really variable. But what's also very interesting is the access level before and after biosimilars enter the market. So we can see that in some countries, as I don't know if I can point, yeah. So in some countries, they really took upon the biosimilar opportunity to increase the access in the anti-TNF. So these are biologics used in rheumatoid arthritis, for instance. And some of the countries have really not managed to increase the access even after the price is lower. And there is another quote from the UK. So Rob Duncombe, he is the director of pharmacy. He's a pharmacist in one of the biggest oncology trusts, NHS trusts in the UK. And he's also quite a big supporter of biosimilars because he said, for me it's very important. If I don't optimize my budget where I cannot afford novel treatments for my patients. And a lot of patients in oncology, when they exhaust first, second, third line treatment, it's very important to be able to give them the next thing available. to come also back to the presentation of the previous speaker, treatment guidelines, nice. So yes, medicines in Europe are evaluated and there are recommendations on what to reverse. So we have seen that with biosimilar medicines, also the treatment guidelines are changing. This is the example of treatment guidelines on adalimumab, etanercept, infliximab, and others. But before the biosimilars entered the market, the disease had to be severe, and so disease activity score DAS28. We need to remember that. Need to be confirmed, like greater than 5/1 has to be confirmed with these 2 occasions, 1 month apart. And after the biosimilars entered, actually we have earlier access for patients because they don't need to have this disease activity score confirmed on 2 occasions anymore. Similar in this case, when it comes to combinations, which was also highlighted in the previous presentation. So, with the biosimilar trastuzumab on the market, NICE concluded that pertuzumab, which is registered in combination with trastuzumab, can be available for the patients in the future, which was not the case before. To conclude, based on the so far experience in Europe, biosimilars bring high quality medicine supply, increased access to therapy, and offer opportunity to invest in healthcare broader. And when I say invest in healthcare, I want to say that it offers the possibility to invest in the broader access, earlier access to treatment, but also further than that, it can bring to the healthcare more money to hire nurses in hospitals, to hire pharmacists, to work on infrastructure, on equipment, on diagnostics, and so forth. And we also work with across all of the groups that were mentioned in the 40, but also with patients. And here is the last quote that I want to conclude. Is from Zorana, who is working for Digestive Cancers Europe. They actually don't have biosimilars yet for their diseases that are coming soon, but they wanted to be prepared in advance and also to work with their patient community to understand what biosimilars are. So what she said is that the introduction of biosimilar medicines in oncology and colorectal cancer may give an opportunity to certain patients to receive treatment according to guidelines, given the inequality of access across Europe. It is important to involve patients in education about biosimilar medicines, policy making, and open discussion. And with that, I would like to conclude, and I hope this quote gives us an important topic to discuss later in the panel discussion in the afternoon. Thank you.
I believe we can take questions for the panel discussion right after, and we can now proceed to our third lecture. So, Marcus Kelly, our next speaker is an employee of General Hospital Shibeni, first year president and later specialist of clinical pharmacy. From 2018, he has been a member of the ESA board, so European Society for Oncology Pharmacy. During his presentation, he will introduce a perspective on hospital and clinical pharmacies, on biosimilars, and the role of clinical pharmacists in decision making regarding biosimilars. Marco, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marco. I just want to say hello to you. I'm really honored to be here with you, and I'm really pleasantly surprised by the proportion of this conference and the fact that it is organized by the students. Excellent work from my perspective. So, I'm going to speak a little bit about biologics and biosimilars from the perspective of the hospital and the clinical pharmacy. This is a disclaimer, I don't know, I never read it, okay. You probably listened in the last couple of days about the structure of the biosimilars, all those proteins, utilization, and etc. And for instance, when we have a new drug in our hospital, do we have in mind its structure? Do we take into the consideration its structure? No, actually we don't. We are not interested in the structure of the new drugs. We are interested, for the side effects, we are interested in first is drug efficacy. So, as a little bit disclaimer, this lecture and most of my lectures are going to be presented through the perspective of the hematology, oncology setting. So I'm not really working in rheumatoid arthritis and other autoimmune diseases. So those biologics will be presented in this lecture and in the workshop in the afternoon. So what about efficacy? What is the most effective drug in history in areas of hematology and oncology? Anybody knows? Are you pharmacists or what is it? What conference is this? Civil engineering? Okay. The most effective drug is actually imatinib, and it's not a biological drug. However, recently we saw revolution, especially in the treatment of metastatic disease of solid tumors, where we saw this. This is one paper published in New England Journal of Medicine a couple of years ago. And this is the drug, biologic, immunotherapy. And this is the old drug that was standard of care at that time. It's chemo. So just as a little introduction, these are the Kaplan-Meier curves of survival. And when each patient dies, curves goes down. So see that. And here patients die more slowly. And as you can see, we have some kind of plateau in the curves of the survival, which is unseen so far. This was the revolution in the treatment of the metastatic solid tumors, because before the immunotherapy, all the Kaplan-Meier curves after some time went to the zero because all of the patients actually died. Regarding and this is the interesting paper published 1 month ago, where you can see that the patient also, the setting was melanoma, advanced melanoma, where you can see that with immunotherapy you have sustained response to the treatment. Patient don't die. You have actually chronic oncological disease, and it was unseen until these days. So the next thing, what we are interested, and these things are really interested because these things interest patients, and we are here because of the patients, is safety profile of the drug. So when we have a new biologic in our hospital, do we see it as a safe treatment option? No, actually no. But it started the therapy, very precise. Does it have any side effects? Yes, we have lots of side effects, which we're going to see now. So each biologics has its unique safety profile. And each biologics has its unique adverse events. For instance, when you have chemo drugs, most of them have similar toxicity, especially on the bone marrow. You have decreased red blood cells, decreased platelets, white blood cells, and etc. While, for instance, in biologics, you can have a detrimental effect on heart function with HER2 blockade. You can have really serious cutaneous side effects. You can have some kind of autoinflammation of your own organs as inappropriateness of the immune response. So we have really unique safety profile, and we need to take that into consideration and put extra attention on those adverse events that we expect. And this is the same trial that we saw before, where you can see that actually this combination, nivolumab plus ipilimumab, had approximately almost 60% of patients had grade 3 and grade 4 adverse events. To put it in perspective, does anybody know what does it mean to have grade 5 adverse event? Excellent. Excellent. If you have grade 5 adverse event, you're dead. Okay. So you can imagine that these are the really serious and life-threatening adverse events that really compromise the quality of life of the patient, which is, by my own opinion, equally or maybe even more important outcome, especially in the setting of metastatic cancer. So actually you have really some kind of bargain between the safety and efficacy of the treatment. Because if 60% of the patients have these serious side effects, you will wonder about what is the quality of that life. And also, recently, you got lots of, when you work in the hospital, you got lots of industry comes to you, you read lots of the news published in the high-esteemed journals, and recently these adverse events started to be associated with the treatment response. And this is published in really high-esteemed journals, where they told you if you have an adverse event, you are probably going to have the response on the treatment. Because if you look back, some proportion of the patients have really good responses to the treatment. Unfortunately, we don't know who those patients are. We don't have any predictive factors. And some new papers, news authorities and etc. Are saying that these sustained responses are associated with the appearances of the adverse events, which is actually really a ridiculous statement if you look at the methodology of their papers. What we have published last month in the journal Oncology. Anybody who's interested, I'm going to send him a video. I'm not sure it's free to download. So, when somebody told you that side effects are associated with better response to the immunotherapy or other kind of biologic, don't trust them. Okay. Regarding the European Medicine Agency, European Medicine Agency is the leading authority in the approval of the biosimilars. You have biological drugs, which are new original drugs, and you have biosimilars, which are similar to the original biological drugs. So these are the basic terms that you need to understand. And EMA approved approximately 69, colleague has some different numbers, but every number is fine with me. So EMA is a leading authority in the number of approvals. Unfortunately, they made a lot of mess with this statement regarding the interchangeability, switching and substitution, where they left the decision to the states of the European Union. So you have the highest authority who doesn't want to take responsibility. And it is the job of the authority to take the responsibility and to give the guidance to the clinicians in daily practice. But they didn't do that. Also, ESMO, I'm not sure that ESMO is supportive regarding the switching, because he told us that the switching should be taken by a physician, and they do not support the automatic switch by the pharmacies. Automatically, you cannot have state tender for the one drug. So also, do not give the clear statements regarding the switching and interchangeability. And also, there is lack of the clinical data regarding the interchangeability in the settings of hematology and oncology. What is the situation in Croatia? These are the numbers from 2017, and from 2017, just a little bit has changed. Actually, we have now incentives from our reimbursement system to prescribe biosimilars, but unfortunately it doesn't function so good. I work in a really small hospital in Croatia, and we were the first. I work in the drug committee of my hospital, and it's really hard to introduce biosimilar even in the clear situation. And by my opinion, it is necessary to introduce biosimilars so you can have new financial space to introduce new drugs. But it's hard. But for clear situation now, we are introducing the biosimilars, and we were the first in Croatia that introduced the biosimilar of the trastuzumab. But any situation that is just a little bit questionable, like switching, dual HER2 therapy, no biosimilars, just away from the drugs. Okay. So this is also meant to be on the monoclonal antibodies. We don't have any issues with the insulins and smaller biologics. And also we had the state tender recently where we had where all monoclonal antibodies were presented under the brand name. So that is the situation currently. But things are changing. FDA recently approved first a biosimilar and also took a positive statement regarding introduction of biosimilars into the therapy. And what is the most interesting for me that they regulated the question of interchangeability or switching. They made original drugs, similar drugs, and also drugs that can be switched because they presented some evidences, probably clinical evidences, I didn't read it, regarding the interchangeability. So what do you think? Is it going to have any effect on Europe? Because this is an FDA in America. Why? Of course, it's going to happen. Because the majority of the money in the pharmaceutical industry is spent in the United States. The United States spend more on drugs than the whole world combined. And not just because they use lots of drugs, but also because of the fact that they pay ridiculously high prices. I mean, 3 times more compared to the Croatia, and there is no, I don't know what is the reason of those high prices. So industry is going to probably, because of the financial state, going to make some kind of research and register it as interchangeable, and it's also probably going to be applied in Europe. Immunogenicity, you're going to hear it a lot when you're having some kind of business with biosimilars. But in general, what is immunogenicity? When you apply some biological drugs, your body can produce some antibodies. For instance, they can neutralize that applied drug or can make some kind of other adverse event. And what is important for you to remember that the most serious adverse events are the rarest ones. So we always need to take precaution. And also there is a difference between the immunogenicity among the biological products. Subcutaneous products have the highest immunogenicity. So extrapolation of the indication is not possible between the IV and subcutaneous forms of the drug just because of the immunogenicity. And this is also the role of the pharmacist to report the side effects, note the side effects with the biological drugs, and to report it under the brand name, not the generic name of the drug. That is the role of this information. So, I want to thank you for your attention with the picture, which is far more beautiful than the biological drugs that you saw before. This is the national park near my home city. If you're going to be in Croatia this summer, it's a really good thing to visit. Thank you.
Many thanks, Marcus, for such an interesting lecture. I believe that we can now slowly move to the next one, since, as mentioned before, we're going to take questions later. So I'll ask speaker to the floor. So our next speaker is Petra Wickman, that oversees government and public affairs for MEP's 3 business sectors: healthcare, life sciences, performance materials as well. Her responsibility also comprises good corporate responsibility, bioethics, and global health. In this case study, Petra will aim to show how MEP deals with those challenges, and she will present some insights into one of their biopharmaceutical development candidates. Petra, you have the floor.
very glad to be here and to see all these students who have decided to study pharmaceutical science. When I was coming here and I decided to come here, I was thinking back to the time when I decided to study pharmaceutical science. And this is already 35 years ago, so quite some time ago, but I still remember why I did decide to study this. And the reason was I wanted to dedicate my professional life to something where I can make a difference. I wanted to learn how to cure diseases. I wanted to learn how to make drugs that make a difference to patients' lives. And I'm sure many of you have the same reason why they chose to study pharmaceutical science. I think the modern word for this is to find a purpose, because we all want to find a purpose in our professional life. We are not just coming to work because we want to earn money. We want to do something which makes a difference. When I then started to work at the pharmaceutical industry, I realized that yes, we can do a lot. However, the perception of pharmaceutical industry is sometimes very different. And the reputation of pharmaceutical industry is sometimes in the category of companies that make weapons and that sell cigarettes. So I asked myself many times, why is that the case? And what can we do to change that? And what is our obligation in industry to change that? Before I come into several suggestions where I think we can make a difference, I would like to shortly introduce our company and what we are doing, so that you understand the background, what I'm talking about. So Merck is a company that is not only focusing on healthcare. We are focusing on three different business sectors. One business sector is healthcare, one business sector is life science. What we do here is we develop services, we develop products that enable companies to do research and development. We also, for example, help small startup companies to bridge the gap between finding an innovative new compound to a clinical study. In performance materials, we do something completely different. We develop compounds for the semiconductor industry. We develop compounds that go into displays. So everybody who has a mobile phone, there are at least 4 compounds from Merck in that mobile phone. So very different business sectors. But we are a global player, and we have a purpose at Merck. And the purpose is we are curious minds and we are dedicated to human progress. So I talked a little bit about the purpose I wanted to find in my job, and I talked a little bit about the bad reputation of pharmaceutical industry. So what is the reason for that? And I think the reason is that many patients are afraid that there is a great innovation out and they have no access to it. It's a little bit different when you spend something for a car. I mean, you can also go by bus if you don't have the money to buy a big luxurious car. You can also decide to go by bus, but then when there is an innovation out in the pharmaceutical industry and as a patient you have no access to it, you are really in a very bad situation. And I have been following the discussion in the press about one of the most innovative drugs that has been developed so far. And I deliberately chose a drug that is not from Merck because I think this is a common topic all over the pharmaceutical industry. I don't know if you have heard about this drug. It's a first gene therapy. The drug is called Zolgensma. And I think it's a miracle for patients because the disease which is targeted by this drug is spinal muscular atrophy, and it's a really devastating disease, especially for young children. So if young children are diagnosed with this disease, and it's a genetic cause disease, then these children have a very low life expectancy, only a couple of years. So with this new drug, now these children have an opportunity to really be cured. And this is absolutely great and it's outstanding. However, when you follow the press, what you can read, I mean, what I showed you here, this is a very positive article about this drug, but most of the articles you read are very negative. And there is this case that the drug is approved in US. It's at the moment not approved in Europe. The process is still ongoing. And this is the reason why we have no reimbursement at the moment in Europe. So parents are devastated to get this drug because they have young children who are diagnosed with this disease and they cannot get this drug. So they are collecting money to get their child treated with this drug. And they need $2 million because they need to buy this drug in the US. And I followed the story of this little baby here who the family collected the money. And in the end the family said, and I was really shocked by that, we thank everybody who helped us to collect this money except Novartis. I found this really very shocking, and I think we all need to work on making drugs available. We already heard a couple of solutions with the previous speakers, but I don't think that this is already the complete solution of this topic. Let me go a little bit into also the industry perspective. If you look at the left side, you can see how the development cost for drugs exploded over the last couple of years. Meanwhile, the average cost for the development of the drug is about 2.6 billion US dollar. And this is not enough. If you look at the right side, you see what the probability of success for the development of a drug is. And if you go to the very right column here, you see when you enter with an innovative molecule your clinical phase 1, the probability that after a successful phase 1 you will get about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years later an approval is below 16%. So it's not like in the car industry. When you start to develop a car, then a couple of years later you have a new car. It's very different here. You start a development, and when you enter a clinical phase, well, you can assume 90% of the molecules you enter will not reach the market because they will need to be stopped for several reasons. So this is a real dilemma that you have these high costs. So and I think if we want to tackle this problem, and if we want to continue to have these great innovations, then we need to look for many ways to also decrease these immense development costs. Because as long as you have these immense development costs, you also will have high prices. Otherwise, nobody will ever embark into drug development. So, what are the solutions? And I think the solution is a combination of small steps. So, I think one of our obligations in the pharmaceutical industry is really to drive scientific progress and to use all opportunities to really decrease those development costs. But I think also regulators have an obligation to embrace innovation and to look for regulations that help to accelerate development, because if you shorten development timelines, you also decrease the cost for development. Also, using the big data technologies, the digitalization will help us to get the costs down. And last but not least, we need to build an intelligent partnership. So if you look at, I will talk a little bit about modeling, simulation, about clinical operations, liquid biopsies, and also what regulators can do. First of all, the most expensive part of drug development is conducting clinical studies with patients. A phase 3, which is the pivotal part of clinical development, a phase 3 costs, depending on the indication, but you can say it's for sure $100 million investment, a single phase 3. And often one phase 3 is not enough to get approval for a drug. So getting these costs down is for sure something where we can have a good lever. So the previous way to conduct a clinical study was, well, we designed a study, we conducted the study, and then we learned from the results. And the results showed us, maybe we should have better designed the clinical trial in another way. So we started another clinical study, maybe with different patients, maybe with a different treatment schedule, whatever. Nowadays we have the possibility, and that's also thanks to new regulations, to use adaptive clinical designs. What does it mean? Well, it actually means you design a study and you design upfront what you expect to learn and what you expect to change depending on the learnings during the conduct of the clinical trial. And this will help you to save a lot of costs, because instead of having 2 or 3 clinical trials, you can learn the same scientific outcome in one clinical trial. So it saves costs because you only then need 1 trial instead of 2, and it also accelerates the way until you have all the data to get approval for the drug. So I think we need to make use of those adaptive clinical designs, and we do that at Merck. So for example, with our immuno-oncology programs, we use a lot of these adaptive clinical designs. Well, personalized medicine, and I'm sure many of you have heard about personalized medicine. So in the past, many of the drugs became blockbusters and were targeting millions of patients. Nowadays, we develop drugs for thousands of patients, because when we develop a drug, we do a lot of biomarker testing upfront to identify exactly the group of patients for which this drug is appropriate. So this all sounds great, and for example, Merck has a drug that's an oncology drug, and this drug is designed to inhibit the oncogenic signaling caused by MET alterations. That's a special gene. So when we run this clinical study, we need to find patients who have exactly this gene alteration. We are targeting non-small cell lung cancer, which is also a devastating disease. And we are targeting from this subgroup of lung cancer cancer another subgroup which is 2 to 5% of lung cancer, non-small cell lung cancer patients. So it's a very, very tiny subgroup of patients, and we are spending all this money to, in the end, treat this small subgroup of patients. And this is completely okay, but I can tell you it's very hard also to find these patients for clinical studies. And we were at Merck nearly about to give up on this drug because we couldn't find the patients for the clinical studies. Even we know the patients are there, but it was very, very difficult. And one reason for this was, in order to test the biomarker, you had to test the tumor tissue. And this is, for a patient, another burden. Patients who are suffering from this disease, and now you need to take several tissue samples, and this is not very nice for the patients. So we developed the diagnostics of these biomarkers further, and the progress that has been made is that meanwhile we are now able not only to test this biomarker in the tissue of the tumor, but also in blood and even in urine. And this has really pushed and accelerated the recruitment of patients. And you see that it seems like a tiny progress in science. You not anymore need to get samples from the tumor. Now you can test the biomarker in the blood or in the urine. And many patients say, okay, that sounds to be okay. I mean, I anyway have to take samples from my blood, so that's okay. And now we really feel that the recruitment of our clinical trials has been accelerated, and we hope that we will now be able to finish this clinical trial and also to demonstrate the efficacy of this drug, especially in this small patient population of just a couple of thousand patients. Okay, I said also regulatory authorities can help us to get these development costs down and can help us to accelerate drug development. On the left side, you see a couple of nice opportunities from regulatory authorities that are a good, I would say, incentive for drug developing companies to embark in those to fight those diseases which have just a couple of thousand of patients. And one is an orphan drug designation, and we have also, I talked about this drug, it has also an orphan drug designation. Another example is our immuno-oncology drug that Merck has. We developed it for Merkel cell carcinoma. That's also a very rare skin cancer disease. And also here we got orphan drug designation, which means you get, compared to other applications, an accelerated review. You get better access to exchange with regulatory authorities about your clinical plan, and that helps to accelerate those developments. In Japan, they have a so-called Sakigake fast track designation, and also this was granted for our oncology drug that I just described to you, that is targeting this MET amplification in non-small cell lung cancer patients. So I think these are really great examples that help companies to follow drugs that are just targeting a very, very small disease. I'm also very impressed by the progress that China has made, the Chinese regulations, and the regulatory authority in China is called NMPA, and I didn't even mention the years 2010, 11, but I can tell you in those years it took 2 years in China to get a clinical trial application approved. So if you wanted to run a clinical study in China, you submitted all your data, and then it took 2 years. Then you already saw some movements in 2016. According to our experience, we submitted clinical trial application. It still took 9 months until we were allowed to start a clinical trial. And these are 9 months waiting period, which will be later access to this drug. So, but we saw really a great development here in China, and you can say now that in China, when you ask for a clinical trial application, then you meanwhile get it within 2 months. And I think this is a really, really great progress, and they are meanwhile at the same level as the FDA or the EMA, in the same ballpark. But there are many other countries where the timelines are still very, very long. And of course, this has something to do with capacity of the regulatory authorities. This has something to do sometimes also with capabilities. So we were applying for a clinical trial application in Ivory Coast because we are developing a drug to fight a neglected tropical disease. I can tell you it took more than 1 year until we got the approval to run this study in Ivory Coast. So I think here we need to become quicker, we need to find ways how we can accelerate these clinical trial applications. Big data, I already talked about that this is a great opportunity. What happens at the moment is that we have data about research in all different pockets, and we have research institutes, they have many researchers, and all these researchers have their own clinical studies. But often, even those institutes don't have a shared platform where they can share all this data so that all scientists have a view on this, of course, anonymized data. And this is a great problem because that leads to the fact that we are not learning enough about these, that we cannot use the data enough to learn from them. So I think by bringing all these data together and analyze this data, we can also accelerate a lot. We also need to think beyond animal studies because animal studies are expensive, animal studies take a long time, and they are currently a prerequisite before we can enter the clinical studies with humans. I don't think that we are already there that we can exclude animal studies, but I think we need to invest really, we need to invest into finding opportunities to overcome animal studies. And we at Merck are really advocating to accept in vitro predictive toxicology methods, and we advocate to also allow that those predictive toxicology studies can, in the future, replace animal studies. This will be a big progress and will be also saving a lot of money and time in our drug development. Manufacturing. We already saw from one of the presenters that we have these big manufacturing sites which cost a lot of money and where we used to produce or still produce our drugs. Meanwhile, when we target only a couple of thousand patients, we don't need anymore these big 2,000-liter bioreactors. And at Merck, we are also investing a lot of research in having mobile and also single-use equipment which you use and then you throw it away in order to manufacture biotech drugs. And I think in many areas in manufacturing, in the pharma industry, we are still in the Stone Age period compared to the car industry, for example. So in many areas we are still producing batch by batch instead to have a continuous manufacturing process. Also a big opportunity to save money. Intelligent partnering. Merck is a mid-sized company when it comes to our healthcare business sector. What we do in order to finance these $100 million studies is we partner with other companies. And I think for one of our immuno-oncology drug, we have partnered with Pfizer. With one of our other immuno-oncology drug, we have partnered with JSK. And this is a double impact because one is we can share the risk, we can share the cost, but there is another important factor is that the two companies share the results, and that means the two companies don't do similar trials in parallel and both fail with their trials. Because this is what happens if competitors, of course, don't share their results. You will repeat the same mistakes at both companies, and this costs the double amount of money. So intelligent partnering is important. So one of my last slides, and I have just two to go, is IP. And I think we heard a lot of biosimilars, and Merck is also a friend of biosimilars. We even had our own biosimilar business. We opened our own biosimilar business a couple of years ago. Later we sold this to Fresenius because we wanted to invest all our resources into R&D. But I think we also need to protect IP in order to continue to invest in innovation. And what you see here is the correlation between R&D expenditure versus an IP index. That means countries where the IP legislation is very protective are also the countries who invest most into innovation. And you see here that in countries where, for example, in Brazil or in India, where we have a lot of IP infringements, well, there's also not a lot of reason to invest into innovation. And we should not forget that. And on the left side, you see it takes a long time to develop an innovation. So first gene therapy was approved in the EU 23 years after the first approved human gene therapy trial in 1989. That's a long time. And it costs a lot of money and effort to get this innovation to the market. My last slide is now a little bit different, and because I think sometimes we, and I can say we in Europe, are here in the developed world. And I would say in all of the European countries, patients have quite good access to medicine. But I think what we should not forget is that in the low and middle income countries, and these are about 106 countries, there is very, very little access to medicines at all. Very, very little access to health at all. And we need to tackle this access completely different than what I told you so far. And I don't want to forget to mention that. There is an independent organization that measures every 2 years how industry is working on getting access to medicines to those neglected populations in those low and middle income countries. And at Merck we are very proud that in this index we are number 4 since 2 years in a list of 20 companies that are measured, because we are doing a lot to give access to health to those countries. And we have been talking a lot about affordability. So do payers or patients have the money to pay for a drug? But in those 106 countries, it's not only about affordability, it's about availability. Are the drugs at all available? It's about awareness. I mean, if you don't know that you have a disease, then you can also not treat the disease. So in those countries, people might not be able, and doctors might not be able to diagnose the cancer. They might not be able to diagnose thyroid disorder. They might not be able to diagnose blood pressure problems. And this is really something we also need to tackle. And Merck is fighting the diseases also in those countries. For example, we have a product development partnership in Brazil to fight multiple sclerosis and many more examples. I know I'm at the end of my time. This is why I would like to close now, and I'm looking forward to discuss a couple of your questions then in the panel. Thank you very much.